Hello Internet, welcome back to our Cataclysm tutorial series. In the last episode, I don't remember precisely what we were doing. I have cut several episodes that I recorded because of certain issues, so we're going to discuss that. So we came over here because we were looking for planks and nails, which we're going to need to construct our faction camp. Now, as we were going, we noticed some issues with Lyle. I wanted to talk about NPC. First of all, I want to stress that I really like this game. Cataclysm is a fantastic game. I support the dev team. I try to support the project as best I can in my limited capacity. I'm a part of the community at this point. I'm a content creator for this game. I think that this game is fantastic. It's definitely in my top 3 or 5 games of all time. So I want you to take everything I say with the knowledge that I actually really care about this project and want to see it grow and thrive. So, I like the game. You'll hear me complain on a regular basis about things like one of the most frustrating things to me is when we find a location that has absolutely no value, has tons of monster density, and really no sense behind why there's so much monster density there. Like the pools, like the parks, like that mailman body that spawns a bunch of the dogs. Those are probably the biggest things that frustrate me about the game. Other than that, it's little stuff. Every now and then we'll find a recipe where I'm like, really doesn't make sense. That should be looked at. That should be changed. But it's pretty rare that I get super frustrated with the game. Most of the time it is when I find a location that has too much monster density. So I found something way worse than that, and that is the NPCs in the game. And I want to, again, stress, I like the game. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody's work, but it's my opinion that NPC companions are absolutely terrible and should not be played with. That's my take. I will not be playing with NPCs anytime soon, just because of the shortcomings that I'm seeing. So basically, we've already had issues with Lyle, right? We've had where we get in the car and Lyle doesn't know what to do. He's going to do it now because he's stuck. Okay. So what is happening here is that we're in this seat. So Lyle's AI says, okay, he's in the car, so I need to get in the other seat. So if we wait a turn, you'll see he steps away and starts to head to go around the car and get in the passenger seat, right? Problem is, his AI then says, oh wait, I'm supposed to stay 2 tiles from the player, so he ducks back down. And so we see him loop infinitely in this position. So this is an easy example of how the AI is maybe not as good as it needs to be. We've seen him, previously, he was, instead of using the nail bat that we've given him, he has been using his baseball helmet as a melee weapon. And that is apparently a very long-standing bug with NPCs where they value the helmets very highly as weapons. And that's just nonsense. That should have been fixed. Apparently it's been a bug for a really long time. Should have been fixed a long time ago because this guy was going into battle using his baseball helmet as a weapon, which is not optimal. Even if for some reason it's a better weapon by game standards than the nail bat, it's nonsense that they would prioritize non-weapon items as weapons. And that should have been fixed a long time ago. So that is a small issue. We have seen him, despite having a gun in his hands. Let's check his skills, which I believe is the M key. You'll see he has... Oh, we got to tab over to it. You'll see he has... Where is his ranged? 1 in rifles and 1 in melee, but 4 in bashing. So I think what is happening is that he thinks he's better at bashing than firearms, so he's not using his rifle. He's bashing. He will, instead of, let's say there's 3 enemies right here, sometimes instead of shooting, he will choose to charge them and melee them instead of firing his gun. And I had someone on Discord say, it's basic firearm safety, maybe he's not confident using a gun. From a realism perspective, he would not shoot. And I hear what you're saying, but I think that is nonsense. I think that in a zombie apocalypse, because remember, the average character doesn't really understand what makes the zombies zombies, so they would go by like standard zombie rules, which is like don't get bit first and foremost. So the idea that this, guy who has no idea what's causing the zombie apocalypse would choose to go punch enemies with his gun instead of trying to shoot them is an outrageous argument, in my opinion, has no ground whatsoever. So the AI absolutely should be prioritizing firearms, and that reveals another issue, which is that we cannot force him to only shoot. As far as I can tell, I've looked through as many menus as I could find. There's no way to make him use the ranged weapon. I can only tell him not to use ranged weapons. I can't say only use ranged weapons. So that opens up a flaw in my opinion, because it makes NPCs much less valuable when they're going to charge into your line of sight, and block me from shooting, and so that they can melee a small horde. It just does not make sense. So that is another issue with their AI that I have a real problem with. Then we discovered another issue. We actually we discovered that Lyle is currently hungry and dying of thirst. So if we go to, that's the M menu again, you'll see Lyle's thirst is currently at negative 75%, which is a very significant reduction. That's very significant. We as a player will never get more than like minus 10% thirst. So negative 75, I mean we can, but we don't because we drink. This is a huge issue, and he's also listed as underfed at negative 11%. The issue with this is that NPCs are not supposed to have needs where they're not supposed to need to drink and be hungry. And as far as I know, I didn't enable that. If we go to, how do we do this? Current world. There's a thing for view current world. Not that. Current world. If we go to NPC needs, it should be in this. Really, it's not in this menu. Someone told me it was in the world menu. Well, obviously I haven't turned it on, or it would be listed here or in mods, which we just looked at, and it's not there. So as far as I know, NPCs shouldn't have needs. The only time they should need to eat and drink is when they are at the faction camp, which we're obviously not at the faction camp. So I did not know he was going to be getting hungry and thirsty, but okay, we saw that he was thirsty, and we thought, okay, well, we just need to give him something to drink. And so we set out to do that. We gave him, this was all off camera, of course. We gave him beverages, water. We gave him, in fact, they're already gone because they're in his inventory. We gave him water. If we go to trade items, I must have saved after I gave it to him. You'll see he has 2 bottles of mineral water in his inventory, but he refuses to drink them. So he's stuck at this major negative thirst. And then if I pick up an item, do we have any juice or anything? I don't want to give him like a beer. No juice. Soda. If we try, so giving him things in his inventory doesn't work. If I examine him and try to use an item on him, we can't even use it because this applies to, it's obviously it's mainly for medical items. So like we can't even use the bottle of soda on him. Maybe it's just that particular bottle. So we'll try something else just to see if we can do this. Use item on. So you'll see we cannot use I don't know why we can use a kilt on him. That's odd. Because it's the only clothing item that's listed here as something we can use on him. But we can't use any of our beverages on him, so that doesn't work. We can't say, use this item. Not yet. I want you to use this item and give him a beverage. Cream soda. That hit the spot. See, this time it gave it to him. When we did this before, he actually said, no, my current weapon is better than this. So it wouldn't let us give him a drink this way because it was trying to make him wield this item, which he did not want to use. I want you to use this item. So we can just forcibly, okay. This did not work previously. Like I said, this tried to wield the cream soda or whatever. And he said, no, I can't. I won't wield that because my current weapon is better. So talk to Lyle and let's check his status. Still at negative 75% thirst. So even though I want you to use this item, we're just going to keep pumping beverages into him. If he ODs on alcohol, I'm just going to laugh. So we gave him, what, 6 drinks there? Let's wait 5 minutes and see if his status updates. TAM. And it has not changed his thirst meter at all. So even though we've been giving him beverages, this is unchanged, which is a problem. This affects his speed as well as other things. Although his stats don't appear to be reduced, his speed is, but not very much. If we were at negative, well, I guess it would mostly affect our focus. But still, it's not optimal to have him thirsty and hungry, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about that. And that's pretty frustrating. I mean, I can see that he's drunk. Talk. He's tipsy. So obviously he actually consumed the beverages, so why is he listed as negative 75% thirst? It's very frustrating to me to have stuff like that where I think I know how... I finally thought, like, oh, I'm learning how the NPCs work. And then something like that happens, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix it. And I'm very frustrated by that. It's just annoying. I don't understand what the problem is. So, all these issues combined make me really hate the NPCs. I've never been so tilted in my life as when we discovered that he was thirsty, and everything I did would not give him anything to reduce his thirst. And then when we tried to get him to, I want you to use this item, and we gave him a box of cereal because we were trying to feed him, he wielded it, and the M4 disappeared again from existence. And so we lost another M4 for no apparent reason, which I gotta assume that that's connected to the container issues. I think he's trying to store them in a container and then they just vanish from existence. But it's so frustrating to constantly be losing things like that, to constantly struggle with this NPC. If we look at the menus as well, one of my personal complaints, and it's a small one, is that every single time we interact with him, we have to go through this dialogue of him asking about our relic, which is just unnecessary. Then we get to this menu that's A through S. It's just too many options. I would prefer them to be in subcategories like let's talk, and then it gives you all the talk options, and then maybe B is like, I want to talk about combat, and then it sets your combat rules and miscellaneous rules and behavior and all that stuff. And then like C, let's do all the trading type stuff, or I want you to, let's talk about items, and then have, you know, subcategories. Because like every time I come to this menu, I'm like, okay, I want one of these, but there's no order to them. They're just thrown together, and I have to go through every single option and read what they do every time I want to talk to him. And so, based on the behavioral issues, the lack of control that I have over my NPC, there's no way to force him to wear something. There's no way to force him into using certain gear. It has to be his decision. I think that that's a terrible mechanic. I understand you want a realism aspect where it's like, you know, NPCs are their own person, so they, you know, they're not going to let you strip them naked and leave them in the apocalypse. But at the same time, there should just be a freaking button that says, let's talk about your gear, and then you get to decide what he's wearing. Because not having control over that is very frustrating to me, that he just wears whatever he wants. And there's sense to it. If you give him certain things, he will prioritize better gear. But at the same time, I just want a button where I can do that quickly, you know. So I think that I didn't want to ramble about this, but it's like I was so tilted the other day trying to get this to work. And like I said, I cut 2 episodes. The first episode was like, we discovered all these problems. Second episode was like, okay, let's talk about NPCs like we're doing now. But I was so frustrated it came across really salty, really aggressive. So here's my take. We have an NPC companion. We set up a faction camp. Our faction camp, I believe, has a lot of value. I think if we can build that up, that can do a lot of good stuff for us. That can just be fun and roleplay-y and bring value to our character's life. And that's assuming that the calorie consumption and their returns is reasonable. Like if I send him out to hunt, as long as he brings back a reasonable amount of meat, I think they're worth it. But if I have to go out every day searching for food to supply the camp, that will not make it worth it to me, and then I would say it's not worth it. For me as a player, I don't think there's a lot of value for my play style in a faction camp because I prefer to play a loner game, and I don't mind doing everything myself. But I think for a lot of people, the faction camp holds a lot of value. NPC companions, on the other hand, that is actually taking an NPC with you when you go out, I actually genuinely think that they're too broken, and I don't, one, personally, I don't enjoy them, and two, I don't think they bring enough value because I'm constantly babysitting. Ever since we picked up Lyle Darden, I feel like I have to babysit him at all times because he continually makes bad decisions, charging into hordes. Despite having a melee weapon, he reloads too frequently, because like reloading is pretty slow when you do it by hand. And I just don't really I don't get a lot of the AI behavior. And I want to stress, like, AI is not an easy thing to do. It's one of those, I follow a lot of game development and stuff. It's like the number one thing people complain about as being really, really difficult is like AI behavior is not an easy thing to program. So I don't want to be crapping all over somebody who put in a rudimentary system, but like they have very little logic attached to them. They make poor gameplay decisions, and half the time I'm scrambling like, Lyle, I have to protect Lyle, I have to protect this guy. That should not be the loop with an NPC. The NPC should be contributing to my success, not pulling me down at every opportunity. So it is my opinion that NPC companions are not worth your time. If you're in the early game and you have them set to melee only, I think that they can be okay. As long as they don't have a freaking baseball helmet, and they actually use the weapon you give them, I think, if we basically went into this town, gave Lyle Darden an upgraded spear, and we were just meleeing as well, I think we would do fine. But the minute that you shift your gameplay to where we are now, which is using our firearm, I think this guy is useless. I think even if I trained his skills, he would still be stupid enough to go in and melee. I don't think that a lack of skill should be the deciding factor between whether you melee or shoot, because I think that a character that has a gun in the zombie apocalypse is going to be focused on shooting for their own safety. I don't think this guy should be going in and meleeing enemies with a gun. It just really frustrated me. It really tilted me. And I wanted to make an episode where I talked about this because I don't think NPCs are good. And I think they need a lot of work before I would be comfortable using them. I don't play with NPCs in my personal time or in really any series we've ever done. As far as I know, Vormithrax doesn't really play with NPCs, and I gotta imagine it's because he sees a lot of the things that I see, where it's a lot of babysitting. I could even be wrong about that. Someone told me he never uses NPCs, and I know he didn't make a lot of NPC tutorial stuff, so I've got to figure he doesn't play with them very much either. But really, regardless, it is your decision at the end of the day. I just don't see a lot of value to it. So we're going to continue playing. I'm going to continue working to get the faction camp off the ground, but I'm very frustrated by the NPC. I'm concerned he's going to die. Since we can't take care of his needs, he's very thirsty and he's getting hungry. And there is specific dialogue in here. If you ask about the NPC tutorial, he says something like, if you don't feed me, I'm going to leave and mutiny. So if there is that mechanic in the game where they can mutiny and leave you, then there needs to be a way for us to feed him and give him water, and take care of his needs. The only way I can think to feed him is to put him at the faction camp so he can eat out of the calorie stores, but the faction camp doesn't even have a beverage storage, so unless we build a well, he's still going to be dying of thirst. Because if we put beverages here in the food supply thing, it just absorbs those into the calorie count. So I really don't know what to do about the NPC. If he dies, or he abandons us, we will just spawn a new NPC because I'm trying to do a tutorial. But I'm pretty frustrated by it because I need to come over here and spend several days gathering wood, and him getting thirstier and hungrier is bad. I don't know what to do about it. So I think we're just going to leave him in the car because I'm kind of sick of looking at him, and he makes me real angry when I just get in the car, Lyle. Real angry when he doesn't do what I want him to do. So, yeah, I don't know. I wanted to make an episode where I talked specifically about this Because I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated by this idiot, you know? It is infuriating. Lyle, stop walking away from me so I can talk to you. So I think we're going to have him guard this position. And I'll see you around. And we're just going to leave him in the car. He should be relatively safe in there. And I just don't want to deal with him. He is infuriating. I don't know. I was very, very angry. I even went on Discord and rambled about it. I was frustrated by it. I don't think I've ever been that tilted at Cataclysm. I've had bad days in Cataclysm. You've heard me have bad days in Cataclysm. But I was losing it. So I think I'm going to wrap this episode. I just wanted to talk about NPCs a bit. And then, yeah, we're going to spend the next few episodes just gathering planks, unfortunately, which is not very exciting. And we're probably going to forge our own nails because it's much faster. And we're going to need a lot of them. But anyway, for now, that's going to do it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.